The North is warming 3 to 4 times faster than the rest of the planet, and the changes that are happening there are happening so fast. And I don't think that urgency is understood.
I thought I had a good handle on the challenges of climate change, and to learn about permafrost melt and tipping points and what is already happening in the Arctic was a real eye-opener.
The virtual water gallery project that Ryan and I collaborated on really focused on the idea of the land and waters being life support. In these high latitude environments, permafrost really glues the landscape together, and climate warming is driving really rapid changes in that foundation to northern ecosystems. As that foundation changes, it alters the land cover, it alters the quality and quantity of runoff reaching rivers and lakes, and is impacting the livelihoods of people living in the north.
The story that we're trying to tell with this work is the story of the land as life support. So we were trying to compare it with the very accessible pandemic imagery of intensive care units and ventilators in hospital settings, and the realization that we are part of a global system and vulnerable to global events in a similar way that we're vulnerable to changing climate and weather events. So life support is the land we live on, land that supports life, and that thin thread that connects us to food security and water security and the air we breathe.
For Northerners, they're living out climate change, and most people don't experience that kind of firsthand exposure to day-to-day impacts of climate warming on the lands that they're living on their livelihoods, etc. But this is the reality in the North, and I think that the kinds of images that Ryan was able to capture from the conversations we'd had, from the work that we talked about together, and from her own research really helped to reflect some of the urgency of tackling this massive problem head on.
I've been an artist, art educator, and book illustrator for many years, and I've been part of the River on the Run Artist Cooperative, which has worked with scientists to raise environmental issues affecting Lake Winnipeg and its watershed. But this project was on another level, with much closer ties to the scientists and engineers. And I sometimes felt like an unprepared student who'd been thrown into a graduate seminar class because I challenged myself to read some of the academic papers and look at the grid plots and maps. I was able to incorporate some of the data, some of the charts into the paintings, which was interesting for me. I loved the learning experience. I loved being immersed in it. I also found the data shocking.
Big effort came from Ryan's side in trying to take all of these pieces of information that she was gleaning from different sources associated with my own program and Northern Water Futures, and boiling those down into really quite amazing pieces of art. It was a really wonderful process that I feel like was mainly driven by Ryan's creativity and wonderful ideas.
At one point, I even took a piece of frozen ground and watched it melt over a few days just to see what would happen. And so I was really trying to understand in a very hands-on way what I was reading in the research. I feel like I learned a lot, and that it was life-changing information in many ways. And I felt very privileged to have access to the expert information as an artist. I think it will take my art in a different direction than it would have gone before.
This was my first foray into science art collaboration, and I would definitely say, having worked with Ryan on this, it would be something I would love to do again. It was really amazing seeing the ideas and challenges and the science that we're doing represented in such a beautiful way. I didn't realize quite how impactful and to accessible those could be.
I think the virtual water gallery, the benefit of it, or what I think is the importance of it, is to give a broader audience to a really important body of emerging research. We hope the conversations between artists and scientists can help us depict the seriousness of what the data is revealing and jolt us out of our outdated patterns of thinking.
I think the message that I would like people to take away from the exhibit is really the urgency of taking action to minimize climate warming. Again, that we can think about the North as a bit of a canary in the coal mine. The changes that are happening there are happening so fast. And I don't think that urgency is understood by many people.
Getting to know how passionate the scientists were about what they were doing. People are very dedicated, very passionate, very concerned about the outcomes of what they're studying and the need for the rest of us to step up and begin to effect some changes. Sometimes we forget we're animals, that we also need healthy ecosystems and other animals and plants for food and oxygen. We need to rediscover that connection.